Hi, I'm Roy from Roy's Garage. Today I'm going to be working on a 2015 Toyota Sienna van, 3.5 liter automatic. I'm going to show you how to replace the AC expansion valve, and along the way I'm going to show you how to replace the ignition coils and the spark plugs. These are the tools I'm going to be using today to do this job. Vacuum pump, AC gauges, 2 different length trace ratchet, 3 different length trace extension, 5/8 spark plug socket, 14mm socket, 5mm Allen wrench socket, 4mm Allen wrench socket, 1/4 inch ratchet, 1/4 inch extension, another 1/4 inch extension, 10mm socket, 5mm Allen wrench, door panel remover, flat tip screwdriver, another flat tip screwdriver, 12mm wrench, a pick, anti-seize, and my dielectric grease. These are the parts I'm going to be using today to do this job. An expansion valve, 6 spark plugs, and 6 ignition coils. Okay, we're going to be removing these wiper blades. So we're going to be popping off this plastic cover. Okay, we're going to be removing this nut. So we're going to be kind of rocking this thing up and down, and it's going to come off. So we're going to be removing this vent. Okay, we're going to be pushing in these tabs and lifting this plastic vent up. So we're going to be removing this wiper assembly, disconnecting this electrical connector, this other one right here, so we're going to be unbolting the wiper assembly. So we're going to be removing these wires. So just gotta push these tabs in and then pop it out. Okay, so we're gonna be removing this tray. There's 9 bolts holding it on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, we gotta remove this guy. So I'm gonna be removing this cover, so you just pull it up. So I'm going to be removing this rubber air intake hose, removing that, and then I'm going to be unbolting the throttle body from the intake manifold and pushing it to the side. And there's one bolt back here that mounts the manifold, I guess, to the engine. And then we're going to come this side, remove this electrical connector, and there's another bracket back here which you can't see, you gotta feel it. This bracket is attached to the manifold to the valve cover, so I gotta remove that bolt. Then we're gonna be removing these bolts, and we should be able to pull the intake manifold off. So we're gonna be moving this hose to the side, removing this air intake hose, okay, removing this air intake tube, okay, so we're going to be removing these 4 bolts. So we're going to be removing this hose. This hose, so there's a bolt over here that bolts the manifold to the engine. Gotta remove that, it's hard to see. Remove this electrical connector. Okay, and there's this other bolt you gotta remove back here. So now we're going to be removing these bolts. Removing this vacuum hose. So there's two more bolts, one here and one in here. So to get to this bolt, you need one long Allen wrench, on 5mm Allen wrench. So I have this T Allen wrench. It's right in, and you just gotta force it loose. Okay, so now I'm gonna remove the manifold. So these are the brackets that I was talking about, mounted to the engine. One here and one here. Okay, so the reason why we're going to be replacing the spark plugs and the ignition coils is because now we get access to back here. Okay, so before we do anything, I'm going to be plugging up these holes with some paper towels. I don't want nothing to go into those holes. So I discharged the AC system. Now I'm going to be removing these hoses. I'm going to be removing the expansion valve. There's two bolts you got to remove. Okay, you got to remove all of this tar away from the expansion valve. Okay, so now I'm going to be replacing these O-rings. There's two O-rings that come in the kit. Okay, so I'm going to be removing these O-rings. I'm going to be putting on my new O-ring that came with the kit. Okay, then I'm going to be removing the O-rings on these two pipes. Okay, so I'm going to be lubing up my O-ring with some compressor oil. Just put some oil on top. That way it slides in. Okay, so I'm going to be putting on my new expansion valve. So I'm going to be putting some anti-seize around my bolts. So I'll be putting on my lines. So I'm gonna be bolting it up, putting some anti-seize on my bolt. So I'm gonna be putting some strip caulking between my expansion valve and the firewall. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so I'm gonna be removing these wires. That way we get a little more room to work with. So these electrical connectors on the coil, I'm gonna remove it, unbolt the coil, pull out the coil, and then change the spark plug. I'm going to be removing this bolt. So we'll be pulling out the coil. So I'm going to be using a 5/8 spark plug socket. So I'm going to put some dielectric grease around the porcelain of the plug. Stick it in my spark plug socket. Putting some dielectric grease on the threads. So I'm going to be putting on some dielectric grease right into my coil. So I'm going to install the coil. Okay, so I'm going to be putting some anti-seize on my bolt. Putting some dielectric grease on my electrical connector. So now I'm going to be changing the 3 coil packs and the 3 spark plugs on the front of the engine. So now I'm going to be hooking up the wire harness. Now we're going to be installing the intake manifold, but before we do that, we're going to be cleaning up the engine side. Shooting it down with some brake clean, just cleaning it up. So I'm going to be putting on the intake manifold. So we're gonna be putting on the bolts. So I'm gonna be putting some anti-seize on the bolts. Put some anti-seize on these threads. One there, one there. So I'm going to put a little piece of this blue towel, shove this guy right in so the bolt doesn't come off my Allen wrench. Now I can install the bolt. So I'm going to be putting this one back here. And the other one back here. So we're going to be tightening these bolts first. So I'm going to be tightening up the bolt in the back. Putting this hose on. Putting this hose on, this vent hose. So I'm already cleaning up my throttle body, cleaning up the intake manifold. Okay, so I'll be putting on some anti-seize on the bolts. Okay, I'm going to be shooting some silicone on my air intake. Make it a little easier to slip on. Shoot some on the throttle body, on the air filter. Okay, put this hose on. Connecting this hose. So we're going to go this side, connecting this electrical connector, but I'll put some dielectric grease in here. So I'm going to be putting back this tray. So we're going to be putting some anti-seize around my bolts. Okay, don't forget to connect this guy. So I'm going to be put on some dielectric grease. So before we do anything else, let's make sure it starts. Okay, sounds like it's running good. So I'm gonna be putting on the wiper assembly. Connect these wires. Okay, put some anti-seize around my bolts. So I'm gonna be hooking up my electrical connector to the wiper motor, putting in some dielectric grease. Connecting my antenna. Okay, we're gonna be installing this plastic panel. So we're going to be clipping it on. Okay, so we're going to be putting on the wiper blades. Okay, so I'm gonna be putting on this plastic cover. Now we're gonna be charging up the AC. So I got my AC gauges on. Now I'm gonna be vacuum out the system using my vacuum pump. So I gotta make sure my gauges are all open. Everything tight. So I'm going to turn the pump on. Vacuum for about maybe 30 minutes. We're going to be turning off the gauges. Okay, so I'm connecting the hose to the Freon tank. Opening up the valve. So I'll be opening up the gauges. So I'm turning off my valves. So I'm going to be turning this can upside down because I want a liquid to go in. So I'm going to be adding my Freon in to the low side. Okay, so I charged up the system. The pressures all look good. So now I'm going to remove my AC gauges and we're going to road test. So I road tested the vehicle. AC comes cold, engine runs good. If you have any questions, comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Aloha.